Take you out to Denver, Colorado. We are chatting with Lindsay McMahon. She's the co-host and CEO of the All Ears English and All Ears English podcast. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. Thank you for having me here. I'm glad to be here.
So let me start by asking, how did you kind of start your podcast journey? What led you into wanting to do a podcast that helps teach English communication around the world?
Yeah, well, it was 2013. It was very early days for podcasting when I started.
Adopter, yeah.
Yes, more than 10 years ago now. I had been teaching English around the world. I had lived in Japan. I had lived in South America. I had lived in New York City, just teaching to adults, to global professionals who wanted to improve their career opportunities and live abroad. And so I thought we needed a tool like this. I saw that classroom learning doesn't always work, especially the way it was being done around the world. And I thought that we could use technology. At the same time, podcasting was starting to become popular, kind of on the fringes still, but I could see it was going somewhere. So the two kind of came together. And that's when we launched in 2013.
Very cool. I'm curious, what is it that is being done in the classroom that you saw and you were like, there's a better way?
Yeah. Well, when I got hired to work in Japan, I worked for a conversation language school, and those types of schools cropped up due to the practices that were happening in schools that students had been going through. Essentially, in Japan, you memorize, the way you learn to read is by memorizing kanji, right? You memorize 2,500 kanji characters. So what I think was happening, and maybe still is, I'm not sure, I hope it's gotten better by now, is a memorization. Right. And I don't think languages are meant to be memorized. The reason you learn a language is for human connection. That's our entire philosophy at All Ears English. And so it's taken in isolation. It's taken like doing math problems or memorizing kanji characters. And there's not a lot of speaking in the classroom. There's not a lot of listening. It's mostly writing and reading. So students aren't ready when they get to the business level. They're just not ready to perform in English and connect.
So how did you look to improve upon that through the podcast?
Yeah, what we did, our format is still kind of different from what you see. There's a lot of new podcasts lately that are great that have cropped up. But at the time when we launched, we were one of the only double hosted shows. So we always have two hosts. So that's what we do. That's one thing that's very important because students want to learn conversational skills. And you're not going to learn back and forth conversation, unfortunately, with one host as well. And so we let them see two hosts coming back and forth with each other, the chemistry, the connection. How do I comment on what someone said? How do I tell a story? How do I interrupt politely, but in a realistic way? We give them 100% real English, which is what they're looking for. We don't edit our show very much, to be honest.
Why do you think that it is taken off from there? So you started doing this in 2013. You have this background in teaching English around the globe. I imagine your co-host also, similar background, teaching English to folks all around the world. What was it that when you were starting to do your podcast that you thought, maybe this will help? Maybe this will, help us find some success, or more importantly, this is going to help our audience find success. What were some of those tactics and things you put in place early on?
Okay, so in terms of tactics, one of the good early decisions we made was the color of our cover art. A couple things. The cover art is huge when you first launch. That's all people have to go on, is what your podcast looks like. We decided to go with a bright color, and we still use a bright yellow, and that's always helped us stand out. It's a very simple thing. If everyone starts using yellow, then no one will stand out anymore. But it pops right on the screen. And we definitely got the word out as soon as we launched. We announced it to our networks. We weren't shy about saying, hey, we're launching a podcast. Sometimes people are a little shy about their work when they launch. They'll let me publish 10 episodes and then I'll let people know about it if people like it. No, you just go for it from the beginning. Friends and family, right? They can share it with someone else. And we know that, in terms of how you get more downloads, especially in Apple Podcasts, you want to get more followers, more people to follow your show. And this leads to more downloads. And the more you get in a short period of time, the more that will lead to. So it becomes like a positive snowball effect. We also put ourselves on the cover, and this is not very revolutionary now, but at that time it was, especially in my industry. So at that time, not a lot of ESL teachers or EFL podcasts were actually putting their faces on the cover. It was much more of a trying to stay professional, staying behind the scenes. we actually didn't have this whole vibe of professionalism. We had more of a fun vibe to what we were doing. And so I guess the lesson for your listeners here is look at what people are doing in your industry and try to do something a little bit different. You know, what can you do? What is the standard of what people are doing? And what might your audience want that could be slightly different, a different format, a different way of presenting the cover art, just a different way of conceiving of the show.
I wonder why folks in your industry weren't putting themselves on the cover. I mean, for those listening who are wondering why is that so important, for many people, when they see actual faces, actual people on the cover, it makes the content more relatable, more personal, makes them want to more engage with them. So, understandably, putting you and your co-host on the cover, you're real people now, someone who, probably garners more interest than just a nameless, faceless, podcast cover art. But I'm curious why you think others in your space weren't doing that. If that was a conscious choice, or like you said, just revolutionary at the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think podcasting kind of came up from the tech world, right? It was kind of a techie thing in the beginning. Maybe it was people that were just more comfortable with their voices, which is fine. It's their own style, their own personality. I think maybe people didn't see it as being as performative as we saw it, as we see it now, as we saw it. Maybe they thought, I'm teaching English, I don't need to be a character. You know what I mean? I don't need to be a personality. And we see it as more, we're personality. We are our true personalities for the most part on the show. We share things from our lives, but I think a lot of teachers separate maybe their personal lives from the teaching, at least in the classroom. So maybe that was the thinking. I don't know. I mean, it's not that everyone was not doing that, but the majority weren't. And so I think that's a big way that we stood out.
All right. And love the use of yellow. Previous guest Harry Duran also on here talking about his show and the use of yellow and how he made that stand out and how that was a big part of his brand. So certainly advice that we've seen before, although like you said, if everybody goes yellow though, it won't be as impactful. So don't just go yellow, but right. Try to stand out is really the key. So looking at the All Ears English podcast, you are up to, it looks like almost 2,300 episodes. Am I looking at that correctly?
Correct. Yeah, that's totally correct. I mean, we do 5 episodes a week, and we've never missed an episode. We've been going since 2013. So if you do the math on that, we bumped up from 4 to 5 just about a year ago. So
how do you keep that pacing, that stamina? Are you just recording every single day, or are you doing, like blocks of recording, right? Recording a week or 2 weeks at a clip?
Yeah, no, we definitely don't record every day. It's not easy. And you do have to, when you hire your team or when you recruit your co-host, however you want to set up your podcasting team, you need to make it clear that this is how we do it. So my team, they know that we publish 5 days a week. It's non-negotiable. It's not if we feel like it. It's not if we're inspired. There is a system that makes sure we get that done 5 days a week. And the way we do that is we do chunk and block off recording times each week. So I've just had one person leave the team. So currently we have 3 of us who are on 3 different podcasts. It's ideal to have 4 or 5 for 3 podcasts. So you have extra people, extra combinations. However, we've got 3 for 3 podcasts at this point. So we will be actually looking to hire a couple of new co-hosts to join the team this spring, just kind of a side point. However, we set up a system where I record twice a week with one co-host. We do about 2.5 hours on a Wednesday morning. And then Thursday afternoon, I record 2.5 hours with a second co-host. And that other co-host records 2.5 hours with the fourth co-host on a separate date. So that creates enough content to keep us about a week or 2 ahead. When people need to go on vacation, we record in advance, and we have a system. Our editor gets the files. Our VA puts the files in the host in Megaphone. Everything is kind of systematized. So the only thing I really do is record the podcast and the WIFMs and the titles, and the team does the rest for the most part.
Gotcha. And I like that round robin system where everybody has a little bit of a chance to work with everybody else in the show and kind of creates a little bit of variety. So having done this since 2013, I'm curious, what are some of the new tools or the new tactics that have come along that you think have changed the game, or that you have found to be most impactful in, whether it's, the sustainability of the show, right, being able to keep it going for as long as you have, or in the show's success? You talk about having, almost 2 million followers of your show in Apple Podcasts and whatnot, with 4 million downloads a month. Nothing to shy away from. What do you think are some of the things that have helped you along the way to reach those levels?
Yeah, I mean, so we do about 4 million downloads a month, and on our other shows, the other shows are a little smaller. They do between 200 and 500,000 downloads a month, I believe. And one
Oh, so paltry numbers, just terrible.
yeah. So one thing that we've done, that we've started doing the last 2 years, and I think we saw about 25% growth between 2023 and 2024, not in downloads, by the way. It's important to note that, in verified listeners. And that is the metric that the industry is starting to actually look for and look at. And that's really important, because downloads are not a great metric. It's currently the metric for advertising, and it's where the industry is, but we will move over time over to verified listeners. We've seen that kind of growth because we do a monthly, we call it a relaunch. So we have 3 shows. Every month we choose one show and we relaunch it, quote unquote. It just means we promote it. And what we do is we use the other shows, right? So we do a feed drop on the other shows to drive to the show being promoted. Feed drops are the most effective thing we've seen. We don't track them anymore, but we tracked them for 2 years on Chartable, and they work really well, especially if there's a match with the audience. And obviously with us, it's a network around ESL, and so different subcategories of ESL, but it makes sense. So if you have that kind of match and you do that, it actually really works well.
Very nice. What would you say were some of the other things that you have done to help grow the show? Or I guess, like you said, it's less about growth and more just about, like, have found success with the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, dynamic ad insertion has been a huge surge forward for the entire industry. We migrated our show to Megaphone. We started dynamically inserting ads and promos, by the way, reminding people to hit follow, which is huge, huge, huge. Reminding people to check out that other podcast, right, which is a tool we utilize in our relaunch plan every month. So dynamic ad insertion is a big deal, as well as monetizing the show with sponsors, which we started doing. We started doing it in 2014, and then we stopped doing it, and we came back to it in 2021. And so I think, in terms of the industry at large, dynamically inserting your ads and your promos is a huge deal.
I'm sure, because of the content that you talk about, you get lots of people who, one, right, they see your success and they want to ask you questions, but two, you probably have folks who are going through your courses and thinking, well, now that I'm more comfortable with the language, now I want to do something. Is there advice that you give out, or are there, common questions that people are asking you about podcasting that you find yourself answering all the time?
Yeah, for sure. So questions about launching and, what should I do when I launch? One thing that we did that I think still works, and we did this when we launched our most recent show, which was Business English in 2022, is launch with a number of episodes already in your queue. Because if you think about it logically, you're probably a podcast listener. Makers of podcasts are also listeners of podcasts, right? Hopefully. And you know that when you find a new show and it's just a trailer or it's just one episode, it's really disappointing. And you're much less likely to hit follow, because you just don't know if you want to hit follow and add that show to your real estate in your queue, because you don't know if you really like that show yet. So what we do is we launch with 6 to 10 episodes already in the queue for them to see if they like the show. And then we really push, please hit the follow button to make sure you don't miss an episode of the show.
I wonder too if, for a while there, people would say you put 3 to 6 episodes in the queue, and that's because it triggers more downloads and therefore games the algorithms and convinces people you're more successful. But I wonder too if, when you launch with 10 shows, if it makes people feel like you've been around longer than you have. It kind of gives them, like, confidence that this is a show that is, it exists. It is already established. It's obviously sustainable if they could do this much content. Do you think any of that might play into the psyche as well?
For sure. And you also hone your message. I mean, to be honest, that's my next tip. And this is why this matters. Frequency of publishing, there's a use for it in the sense of you'll figure out your voice. You're not going to find your voice on episode 1, right? We found our trademark, and it's more than a trademark. It is a value. It is the reason we work on this show, and it is connection, not perfection. And we trademarked the phrase, but we also say it in every episode. Connection, not perfection. And as it applies to language learning and also broadly life. And it works because everyone can relate to that. Everyone says, yeah, that feels right. I want connection. I'm always torturing myself over trying to be perfect. And we just show them how to do it in language learning. So it's like a evolutionary thing. If you can find a message that you really believe in, but you're not going to find it on day 1. You're going to find it on episode 55, right? Or episode 102. So that's why there is something to be said for publishing more frequently, and you're just getting everything out, figuring out what you actually believe when it comes to your industry. What is your unique angle on your industry? You can't find that by sitting and thinking about it. You have to talk through it. At least that's the way I figure things out, is by talking through things.
I am exactly the same way. Somebody will ask me a question and I'll be thinking about it as I'm talking. I'm solving the problem like as I'm speaking.
Must be a podcaster.
Connection, not perfection. Yeah, well, yeah. Connection, not perfection, I think is great, especially in teaching folks language, right? We communicate with so much more than just our words. And if you can build up a good connection with somebody, even if you don't have a perfect grasp of the language, you can communicate what it is you're trying to say and hopefully work through it and build a relationship and build that communication, that strength, that connection. So I think I love that phrase, and I'm damn jealous that you trademarked it. We are chatting with Lindsay McMahon, CEO of All Ears English and the co-host of the All Ears English podcast. You can learn more about that at allearsenglish.com and bunch of other spots, which we will have links to here in the show notes. Lindsay, before we let you go, we have a few questions we'd like to ask everybody in the show.
All right.
One, since you've been in the space for so long and you've probably seen a ton of improvement, but I'm wondering, is there another spot in podcasting that you would like to see improved, whether it's from the creation, distribution, even the listening, consumption, discovery side? Is there one thing where you're like, God, I wish podcasting did this better?
I think I would like to see, and I think there are always, new software tools cropping up, but around getting people introduced to each other. I think that's how we met on Podmatch, right? So tools where you can, I'm not sure if we met on there, I'm not sure, but ways that you can meet other podcasters. Yeah, because guest hosting, or guesting rather, being a guest on another show really helps your show grow. That's one of the strategies that I didn't mention, but it's an important way that we grew. So more software and more websites cropping up to introduce, so that people can be introduced to each other, that might add mutual value to each other's shows. I'd like to see more of that. You can never have enough of that, to be honest.
I couldn't agree more. And by the way, if you're curious about Podmatch, which is the platform that Lindsay and I were able to connect on, we'll have a link to it here in the show notes below. Check it out. Alex, who was a previous guest on the show, just put together a fantastic platform, continues to improve it all the time, and well worth the time and investment there. You kind of alluded to it, but my second question is there any particular tech on your wish list, like something that's already out there that you just haven't pulled the trigger on, or something you're like, God, I wish somebody would make this so that I can do my job better? Hardware, software, anything in between?
Well, if any of your listeners do video to go along with their podcast, or if they do any filming on the side, if they sell courses, that kind of thing. I just bought a teleprompter, and it's called Prompter. So I haven't taken it out of the box yet, but I have a feeling there's a major
That's from Elgato.
Yeah, Elgato teleprompter. So I'm not going to endorse it yet because I haven't used it, but I got a lot of good recommendations for it. So I am looking forward to using that. There is a problem that we have where we film a lot of VSLs, video sales letters, a lot of intro videos, because we sell courses as part of how we make money in our brand. And it's really cumbersome having your notes on a piece of paper that you have to get up every 5 lines and then tape up a new piece of paper. And it's just very slow. It's a slow process. So I'm looking forward to trying this teleprompter. I would also like some really, I would like more technology around recording like this. We've tried Riverside, we've tried Squadcast. They're all decent programs. We're on StreamYard right now, but I would just like to have more options. You can never have too many options, like I said.
That is very, very fair. And yeah, I got that prompter. I love what it can do. I love its capabilities. What I'll say to anybody listening who's thinking about it, it works best if you have the right cameras for it, whether that's a really good DSLR camera with a lens or Elgato's actual webcam, right? They have plates that are built to make it work better. I've tried it with a few others that weren't 100% compatible. And what I got was a lot of glare on the screen and not a great picture, but the prompter itself worked great, and whether you're using it to read text on the screen while looking directly into the camera, or even just using it to interview someone where you can see them, you're doing an amazing job with eye contact on the camera. So I'd be curious about your setup later, but for a lot of folks like me, my camera's here, but like you're over here, and so it's I look a little shady or shifty, so to speak. But the prompter definitely can help with those things, and we'll throw a link to that here in the show notes as well. And then like you said, people who create podcasts are also big listeners. Any shows on your playlist, like, when a new episode drops, stop what you're doing. You're going to listen to it, or you're never going to let a new episode get by you?
Yeah. I mean, I like Prof G. I've been listening to that lately. Scott Galloway publishes some interesting content. I also listen to like science, health, and nutrition podcasts like Zoe. It's called ZOE. It's I think a British host. I listen to Vox. What is it? Today Explained. Not Vox. It's Today Explained. Yeah. And I also listen to the Journal and the Daily. So I'm a major podcast listener for sure, but right now I don't have a show that I'm incredibly passionate about. So I'm on the hunt for a new one. Very hooked on for sure.
You hear that, podcasters? Another listener available to be your huge fan. So
that's right.
Make some good content here for Lindsay.
Yep.
Lindsay McMahon, CEO of All Ears English and the co-host of the All Ears English podcast. Been doing it for over 10 years. Amazing stuff. Keep up the great work. And thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Matthew. It's been great chatting with you today. I appreciate it.